Yeah, I would say femme is probably the most important part of my identity, I think. It's a term that kind of like I came to know about through like being parts of different queer communities, and kind of I've always had like a very close relationship to femininity and like what that means to me. And a lot of my gender identity is very closely linked with being a Black person, and yeah, kind of like having a relationship to Black womanhood, but also yeah, coming to be aware that I don't identify as cisgender. And so like, yeah, femme just felt like a really good term for me.
Identify as a mixed race person, or sometimes use the term mixie, and that for me is like fundamental to who I am and a really important piece of my identity, which also informs my queerness and my transness, so that they're intersectional pieces. There's different parts that come together and make a difference in who I am, and making room for that language is really important too.
My sexuality has been informed by just my own experiences of attractions, intimacies, sexual experiences that I've had throughout the whole of my life. That sort of helped me sort of come to understand like my own sexual orientation. And gender is like really complicated for me. Some of the things that have informed and also confused my sense of understanding of gender has been race. I'm a fat, Black, bi woman. So in terms of sort of figuring out what that means for my gender as a cisgender woman is like, of all the fat, Black, bi women that I have as models of womanliness or femininity, there aren't that many. So it's been really confusing. In some ways, my sexuality seems like it's a bit of the disappearing sexual orientation. And part of that has to do with ways that people define, you know, some definitions of the term that have sort of come out. The term has always meant attraction to your own gender as well as attraction to other genders. So there within it, there's like an acceptance of all different kinds of gender expressions. And that's kind of how I prefer to see the term. And also it's what was intended by the term.
What informs me is life experiences that I've had and the community that I happen to live in and the people in my life.
I think like growing up really young, I had no education around sexuality and gender. Prior to Creston, up until I was 8 years old, we were in a small community in Crawford Bay, and it was a very loving community and very accepting, very eccentric. And when my family split, my mom and my dad divorced, we decided to move to Creston, and it was a change in culture, it was a change in mentality. I experienced like being bullied and stuff once I went there in elementary school. And then also with my trans piece, I just feel like I had no word for it. It was a workshop, a diversity workshop, and that's where I experienced a group of people that identified multiple ways. I've met a couple people that were demisexual, and I learned what that was. And like, I mean, there was a certain language that I didn't understand up until maybe a year and a half ago. So most of that I've been educated on is through meeting people in the LGBTQ community and in Vancouver. Vancouver, I feel like it's everywhere. It's a lot more accepting.
Moving to Vancouver has been a really big part of that as well, being able to interact with communities who taught me language that I didn't even know, and that allowed me to kind of like, yeah, like find terms and labels that worked for me.